I'm convinced of this. If we don't do something to change the face of Washington, we will soon lose this way of life we love and expect for our children. And 2010 may very well be our last chance. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you my pick for the job, Dr. Rand Paul.
Thank you, Tim, for inviting me. Thanks for inviting a lot of your friends out here. I'm a physician. I'm an eye surgeon over in Bowling Green, and people often ask me, why would you want to go from a profession that's almost universally respected to a profession that's almost universally disrespected? And that's a good question. Politicians, I think, maybe justly so, are being disrespected because they never do what they're elected to do, and that's to do responsible spending and responsible balancing of the budget. They just don't do it. I think, in fact, probably they'll never do it. I think most politicians are not to be trusted, and I think that's why we may have to have some new rules. One of the new rules I promote is term limits. I think they should go for 2 6-year terms in the Senate and 6 2-year terms in the House. They should come home to live under the laws the same way as you and I do. I think even when you finally get lucky enough that you elect a good person, once they're up there 12, 14, 20, 30 years, they forget about you. It's kind of a nice life up there. The parties are great. And they come back on occasion and tell you what they're doing for you. Or they try to bring you some pork barrel project. It's easy to get the PAC money if you just bring a project to your state. And consequently, the deficit gets larger and larger and larger. And it's both sides of the aisle. I'm a Republican and have been for many generations, but when we were in charge, the deficit the debt went from $5 to $10 trillion. Now the Democrats are in charge and we have a $1.75 trillion debt in 1 year. 3 times worse than the Republicans. We have to do something. Someone has to stand up and say they will do something. I personally have made the pledge that I will not vote for any budget that's not balanced, Republican or Democrat. Now some people say that's impractical. You won't be an effective legislator. I don't want to be an effective legislator. I want to tell people we have to change our ways. The deficit this year will be 13% of the gross national product. Spending is at 28% of the gross national product. These are at historic highs, higher even than World War II. The deficit is consuming us as a country, and we have to do something about it. We're spending money at $53,000 a second. The budget, the interest on the budget deficit is $30 billion a month. People say, well, I can't even conceive of $1 trillion. I can't conceive of what $1 billion is. Well, 1 billion seconds ago, I was in high school. 1 billion minutes ago, Jesus was alive. 1 billion hours ago was the Stone Age. But $1 billion ago, at the rate the federal government spends, it was about 7 minutes ago. Things are out of control. You will not get a change if you just get another career politician. People say, oh, well, we've got other Republicans running, and if they win, it'll all be fine. They've got an R next to their name. Everything will be okay. It's not enough to have an R next to your name. I tell people that political parties are an empty vessel unless you imbue them with values. You have to believe in something. It's not enough just to be a Republican or to be a Democrat. In fact, the most common refrain I hear from my patients when they come in is, I vote for the man or the woman, not the party. People do believe in that, but we have to believe in something. We have to present that. I heard somebody earlier talking about reading the bills. I have signed up and I will support an act that says you have to sign a statement saying you've read the bill before you vote on it. The bills are 1,100 pages long. The bank bailout bill was 1,100 pages long. It was printed at midnight. There were only 20 copies the next morning for 535 members, and it was passed by noon. Not only are they not reading the bills, they're not even writing the bills. On the bank bailout bill, my father, who's on the banking committee, got calls from banking lobbyists saying, what are you going to do about Section 42B? And he's like, well, I don't know. I don't even have a copy of the bill. And they said, we do. We'll bring it to you. The lobbyists have the bills before the congressman. In fact, the lobbyists write the bills. A few clerks in high-ranking positions in the middle of the night are sticking in provisions. And what's the consequence of that? When we passed that bank bailout, they said, oh, we're just going to buy up some of the bad debt. Well, it turns out they just bought up the banks. We now have the government owning banks. The bank bailout said nothing about automobiles in it, but what did they do? They went ahead and bought the automobile companies too. It said nothing about them. When Chrysler went bankrupt recently, after we had already given them billions and billions of dollars, they went to bankruptcy court, and the way bankruptcy court is there are people called preferred bondholders, and everybody's in line. If you're a stockholder in Chrysler, you're at the bottom of the list and you're unsecured, you won't get any money. But the preferred bondholders were the Teachers Pension Union of Indiana. Obama said these are those fat cat rich capitalists. They were the retired teachers of Indiana. But a pension fund invests in conservative investments, and they want to be number one in line if someone goes bankrupt. There's history to this, it's the way the law works. But President Obama came in and said, no, the AFL-CIO is going to come up and we're going to make them equal with the pension union, which means they stole money from a preferred bondholder to give to an unsecured bondholder. Not only does this hurt the teacher's pension, but it hurts all of us. If you're a pension and you want to invest in a secure investment, you want to be the preferred bondholder, but you want to be told that in your contract, and it needs to be expected. This is the rule of law that we're getting away from. They're now talking about using the bank bailout. They used it for the banks. They've used it for the automobiles. They're now talking about bailing out the newspapers with TARP money, with bank bailout money. The bottom line is we do not have the money. There's not enough tax money. We're all frustrated with how much we are paying in taxes. We have borrowed so much that we're at wit's end. Can we borrow more? We owe the Chinese $800 billion. The Japanese $700 billion, the Saudis $100 billion, the Taiwanese $100 billion. We're the greatest debtor nation known to man. What is our biggest export from our country? A great country that used to have a great manufacturing base like ours, our biggest export is debt. We export our debt. What do your leaders tell you? How will it be better? Well, here's $4,500, just go buy a new car. Or just go to the mall. Everything will be okay. Just go to the mall. Just consume things and we'll be fine. Where do we get the money to consume? We just have to borrow it either personally or as a government. We can no longer continue to do this. People say that our kids and our grandkids will pay for this debt. I think that's true, but I think it's also more imminent than that in the sense that we will be paying for this debt through higher prices. They doubled the monetary base last year. This is the Federal Reserve trying to flood money in to take care of what they call a shortage of money. Well, that may be all well and good. They print up a $4,500 and give it to you, and at first it seems good, I can go buy a car. The problem is when they increase the money supply, you eventually will pay for it through higher prices. They are destroying and stealing the value of your currency. I think we may get times worse, and I know many in this room remember 1979, when we had 20% inflation and nearly 20% interest rates. I think that could come back. And I think we're in serious shape as a country and we have to do something about it. You need to elect people, and you need people who will go up there who do not care to remain for a career, who will do the right thing and come home, and who will say enough's enough. I propose that if you get a federal contract for more than $1 million, that there's a clause in there saying you won't lobby Congress during the terms of your contract. That you will not give money to PACs if you're getting money directly from the federal government. We have to do something about it. What is the answer on the other side of the aisle? Cap and trade. Now, I would be opposed to cap and trade even if there were no coal industry. I know there is coal industry out here, but I would be opposed to it anyway because you know who's going to be killed by it? The consumer. They're estimating as much as $500 per family per year increase in your electric bill. Who's that going to hurt the worst? Who do any rising prices hurt the worst? Those on the lower part of the socioeconomic ladder, those on fixed income who are retired. Where have those voters been going for years? They've been going to the Democrat Party. So what we need to do as a Republican and how we can win without giving up our message is we have to tell people who are struggling to work their way up the socioeconomic